afternoon, everybody. So I'm Alicia John-Baptiste. I'm CEO at SPUR, and SPUR is a member-supported urban policy organization. We work for good government, good planning, through research, education, and advocacy. And we do a lot of work in San Francisco, San Jose, and Oakland. We also keep a regional perspective. And so what I'm going to talk about today is the work we've been doing to develop a regional strategy for the Bay Area looking out to 2070. And the process that we've been engaging in has been to think about where are we today, what are the trends and forces that are at play in the region that will shape our future, where do we want to go, and depending on where we want to go and where we are, what are the steps that we need to take in order to achieve this vision. And we're looking at 2070, this 50-year time horizon, for a couple of reasons. And the first is that we can see today the impact of decisions that we made 50 years ago, whether that was to build BART or to pass Proposition 13. We also wanted to put ourselves in a position where we could think beyond what we consider to be our existing political or technological constraints. So we have these two buckets that we've been working with, forces and trends. And forces are things that from a regional scale, we really cannot control. They're things that we have to be able to respond to. And then trends are things that we can actually come together to shape the outcomes of. Looking at the key forces at play. So the first, climate change is now unstoppable. We know that even if we were to eliminate our carbon emissions tomorrow, there's enough junk in the system, that's a technical term, to mean that we will be dealing with the repercussions of climate change for millennia to come. Similarly, we will have an earthquake at some point in time in the Bay Area. We know that there is a 33% chance of a 6.7 magnitude earthquake along the Hayward Fault alone over the next few decades. So the question is, how will we prepare? We also have an aging population and a population that is becoming more diverse. So as we think about the future of work and the various systems that we use collectively to support ourselves as a region, how do we design those in such a way that they serve people of all different backgrounds, all different ages and abilities? Automation is having a big impact on our future employment. How will we adapt our education and workforce development systems as we see these trends come into play? The federal government has massive impact on us as a region, whether it is immigration policy, taxation policy. The federal government also has pretty consistently divested from investment in infrastructure over the years, whether that's transportation or housing. So as a region, we really have to come together to figure out how we resource our collective systems. Turning to the trends, the things that we can work together to shape, we have obviously a booming economy, but our future prosperity is not guaranteed. It's hard to remember this now, but we actually lost employment between 2000 and 2010. And that did coincide with the dot-com bust. It coincided with the Great Recession. But we also know we've been in one of the longest periods of economic boom in history recently. We have an incredible shortage of housing in the region. Since 2000, we've added about 1 million people to the 9 counties. We chose not to build 700,000 units that would have been necessary to meet demand over that same period of time. So what we're seeing is a shift in our demographics where we've lost 300,000 households earning $100,000 or less from the region. We've gained 625,000 households earning $100,000 or more. We have this general sense that the lower income folks are moving to the outer counties, the ones that are right next to the 9-county Bay Area. And when we look at the data, we see that that is true. In the outer regions, we've seen an increase in the number of households earning between 50 and 75,000. But even in the outer counties, we're seeing a decline in the number of folks earning less than 50,000 a year. And it might be appealing to think, well, booming economy, everybody's getting wage increases, that's why we've seen these demographic changes. But we also know that our wages have been quite stagnant at both the middle and lower income ends of the scale. And we're really only seeing true growth in wages at the upper ends of the economic echelons. So unsurprisingly, in the Bay Area, we see inequality on the rise. This is an issue that is not Bay Area specific. It is something that is playing out nationally. It's playing out across countries in the developed world. But today in the United States, there are 400 people who have the same amount of wealth as the bottom 150 million people. That is a concern when it comes to questions of social cohesion. Transportation. We have designed our systems to be centered around the car. Laura was speaking this earlier in her presentation, excuse me. And so what we have today is an increase in the number of people who are super commuting. And then another question for us. We're very well represented at a local setting in the Bay Area. We have lots of local governments, we have lots of special districts, lots of different ways that we manage ourselves. Where we have fewer institutions is at a regional scale, which makes it more challenging to address some of the issues that we face from a regional action perspective. So as we think about where we want to go, we've really rooted our vision in the concept that we can have a region that is equitable, that is sustainable, and that is thriving. How do we get there? And we have a lot of questions that we're still answering, but I'm going to offer a couple of pathways today. So this concept that climate change is unstoppable and we must adapt. We've been working with the San Francisco Estuary Institute to tackle this question of shoreline adaptation, keeping in mind that the bay itself is heterogeneous, that there are systems at play that are at the bay scale in terms of physical processes, that sea level rise really doesn't care where we drew the lines on the map in terms of our jurisdictions, and so we need to actually follow nature's lead and look at the bay from the standpoint of what does nature suggest that we do in this particular part of the bay, and then develop a suite of solutions to implement adaptation at that scale. And we've been very excited to see San Mateo County really leading in this. San Mateo County has been using this specific set of tools and then taking it to the next level by doing social analysis too, to ensure that the adaptation strategies are correct for the cultural context. On the transportation side, how do we change our system so that we are not so centered on the car? How do we give people real, viable alternatives to driving alone and driving hours and hours every day? We believe that a starting point for this is in establishing a mega-regional rail system. This is a system that builds off of our existing infrastructure, adds a couple of key missing pieces, and then allows us to move anywhere within the 9 counties in 60 minutes or less, which sounds like a dream today, but this is achievable. Or within the mega region, the 21 counties, in 90 minutes or less. If we organize ourselves to think about a system that then has hub stations along the rail, we also unlock a lot of land use opportunity. A lot of ability to do development, but also an opportunity to do asset creation for the low-income communities where many of these potential stations would exist. So that rail becomes an opportunity for asset creation rather than a threat of displacement. We have a lot of questions that we're still grappling with. And one of them is, how do we build enough housing? We believe that to meet our affordability goals, we will need to build 2.5 million housing units in the next 50 years. Our high year as the Bay Area, we produced somewhere around 40,000, and that is when we were really still embracing sprawl. So how does this become feasible? How do we sustain our economic prosperity? It is not a guarantee, and we want to make sure that as we are building a thriving economy, it is really reaching all of the folks who live here. We have billions of dollars of investment need in our infrastructure, whether that's on housing, transportation, or climate. How do we find resources to invest sustainably into the systems that we need? And then finally, how do we organize ourselves? How do we make sure that we have set ourselves up so that we can both see issues at a collective scale and act from that standpoint? So a lot of questions still to come, and this can sometimes feel a little bit overwhelming. I just hearken back to, we have shown so much leadership as a region over the years. We have led, of course, on technological innovation, on economic innovation, but we've also led on environmental stewardship, we've led on social inclusion. So I have tremendous faith and optimism that we can do this. And to steal Roseanne's line, we're looking forward to working with Samsita to get it done, and we are stronger together, and we look forward to working with each of you. Thank you.